Why is it so hard to say no? Not to strangers. Not to people you barely know. But to the people closest to you. Your family. Your friends. Your partner. Your colleague. Someone asks you for something, and even though every part of you wants to say no, even though you are exhausted, overwhelmed, and have nothing left to give, you hear yourself saying yes. And then you spend the next hour, the next day, sometimes the next week resenting it. Resenting them. Resenting yourself. This is not a personality flaw. This is not weakness. This is a deeply rooted psychological pattern that was built into you long before you were old enough to understand what was happening. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why you cannot say no, and you will finally have the tools to change it. The inability to say no almost never starts in adulthood. It starts in childhood, in the environment where you first learned what love looks like, what safety feels like, and what you needed to do to keep both. For many people who struggle with saying no, there was a very specific lesson learned early in life. The lesson that their needs, their comfort, and their preferences were secondary to the needs of the people around them. Maybe you grew up in a household where keeping the peace was survival, where expressing a need or a boundary was met with anger, withdrawal, or emotional punishment, where being agreeable was the only reliable way to feel safe and loved. Maybe you were praised relentlessly for being helpful, selfless, and easy, and learned that your value as a person was directly connected to how little trouble you caused. Maybe you watched a parent sacrifice everything for others and absorbed the unspoken message that this is what good people do. Whatever the specific origin, the result is the same. A child who learns that saying yes keeps them safe and saying no puts everything at risk. That child grows up. But the lesson stays. Over time, the inability to say no stops being just a behavior and becomes an identity. You stop thinking of it as something you do and start thinking of it as something you are. A helpful person. A giving person. Someone who shows up for everyone. Someone who never lets people down. And on the surface, this identity feels positive. It feels virtuous. People praise you for it. They rely on you. They call you the dependable one, the generous one, the one who always comes through. But underneath that identity is something much more uncomfortable. A constant low-level anxiety about what happens if you stop. If you say no. If you let someone down. If you put yourself first for once. Because somewhere deep in your subconscious the equation is still running, the one you learned as a child. My value depends on my usefulness. If I stop being useful, I stop being valued. If I stop being valued, I stop being loved. And that fear, the fear of losing love and belonging by simply having needs, is what keeps the yes coming out of your mouth even when everything inside you is screaming no. Most people have heard of the fight or flight response, the survival mechanism that kicks in when we feel threatened. But there is a third response that is far less talked about and far more relevant to people who cannot say no. It is called the fawn response. Fawning is when a person responds to perceived threat not by fighting or fleeing but by appeasing. By becoming agreeable. By making themselves useful, pleasant, and non-threatening in order to neutralize the danger. This response develops most commonly in people who grew up in environments where conflict was genuinely dangerous, where a parent's anger was unpredictable, where emotional safety depended on keeping someone else calm, where the child learned that the fastest way to feel safe was to become whatever the threatening person needed them to be. As an adult, fawning looks like people-pleasing. It looks like automatically agreeing. It looks like going along with things you do not want to do. It looks like feeling physical anxiety at the thought of disappointing someone. And the most important thing to understand about the fawn response is that it is not a choice. It is an automatic survival mechanism running on autopilot, one that kept you safe as a child but is keeping you trapped as an adult. Even when someone who struggles with saying no manages to get the word out, even in those rare moments when they hold their boundary and decline a request, what follows is almost always immediate and overwhelming guilt. And that guilt is not random. It is the enforcement mechanism of the people-pleasing pattern. Guilt is what your mind uses to punish you for stepping outside the role you have assigned yourself. For daring to have a need. For inconveniencing someone by having a limit. The guilt says you are selfish. The guilt says you could have helped and you chose not to. The guilt says, what kind of person are you? And for someone whose entire sense of self-worth is built on being helpful and available, that guilt is genuinely unbearable. So they give in. They call back and say, actually yes, I can help. They over-explain, over-apologize, overcompensate just to make the guilt stop. And every time they do, the pattern gets reinforced. The mind learns, saying no leads to unbearable guilt. Saying yes makes the guilt stop. So next time, saying yes becomes even more automatic. This is how people pleasers get more trapped over time, not less, even when they genuinely want to change. One of the most overlooked reasons people cannot let go of someone who hurt them is that the relationship became part of their identity. When you are deeply involved with someone, especially over a long period, your sense of self becomes intertwined with theirs. You think of yourself in relation to them. Your routines, your social circle, your future plans, your daily habits, all of it was built around their presence. When that person leaves, it is not just them that disappears. A version of you disappears with them. And your brain, scrambling to maintain a coherent sense of self, keeps reaching back toward what it knew. Keeps trying to rebuild the identity that felt familiar. This is why so many people describe feeling like they do not know who they are after a painful relationship ends. It is not dramatic. It is accurate. Part of your constructed self has been dismantled, and rebuilding it takes time, intentional effort, and often a level of self-exploration that the relationship never allowed space for. When we cannot let go of someone who hurt us, we are almost never holding on to who they actually were. We are holding on to who we believed they could be, or who they were in the beginning, or who they were in their best moments. The human mind has a powerful tendency to idealize people it has bonded with, especially after loss. The painful memories soften. The good memories intensify. The red flags that seemed obvious in hindsight become invisible in the rear-view mirror. And what remains is a version of this person that probably never fully existed, a highlight reel constructed by a grieving brain trying to make sense of why it misses someone who caused so much pain. This idealization is not a flaw in your thinking. It is a natural protective mechanism. But it keeps you trapped in a version of the relationship that was never real, mourning a person who existed more in your hopes than in your actual experience. Letting go becomes possible only when you can hold both truths simultaneously. They hurt you, and you genuinely cared for them. Both things are true. And both deserve to be acknowledged. Shame plays a quietly devastating role in why people cannot let go of painful relationships, and it is almost never talked about honestly. When a relationship ends badly, especially one where you were mistreated, a very cruel internal process often begins. Instead of directing anger outward at the person who hurt you, the mind turns it inward. You start asking, why did I allow this? Why did I stay so long? Why did I not see it sooner? Why did I keep going back? These questions feel like self-awareness. They feel productive. But they are often just shame in disguise. And shame does something very specific, it keeps you mentally locked in the experience. Because the mind cannot rest with an unresolved sense of having failed yourself. It keeps returning to the wound, not to heal it, but to punish you for it. Letting go becomes almost impossible when you are still in a cycle of self-blame, because releasing the relationship would mean accepting what happened without fully understanding why you let it. And that level of self-compassion is one of the hardest things a human being can learn. Your nervous system is a learning machine. Every experience you have teaches it something about how the world works and what to expect from other people. And a painful relationship, especially a long one, teaches your nervous system some very specific and very damaging lessons. It teaches it that love involves anxiety, that closeness means unpredictability, that caring about someone means bracing for hurt. These lessons do not disappear when the relationship ends. They stay encoded in your body, in the way you flinch at certain tones of voice, in the way your heart rate changes when your phone lights up, in the hypervigilance that follows you into spaces that should feel safe. And here is the painful irony, the person who taught your nervous system those lessons is also the person it associates most strongly with the feelings of connection and familiarity. So even while part of you knows they hurt you, another part keeps reaching toward them because they are what your nervous system recognizes as intimacy. Healing this is not a mental exercise. It is a physical one. It happens in the body, through safety, through time, and through new experiences that slowly teach your nervous system a different story. You have probably been told that time heals everything. And while time is necessary, it is not sufficient on its own. Simply waiting for the feelings to fade without doing anything differently does not rewire the neural pathways that were formed in the relationship. It does not process the unresolved grief. It does not rebuild the identity that was lost. It does not reteach the nervous system what safe connection feels like. What actually creates healing is not the passage of time but what you do with that time. Processing the experience through journaling, therapy, honest conversation with trusted people, or deep self-reflection allows the brain to complete the unfinished story it keeps looping on. Building a life that feels meaningful independent of the other person gives your identity somewhere new to anchor. Creating new experiences of genuine connection with friends, family, or eventually new relationships slowly teaches your nervous system that intimacy does not have to mean pain. None of this is quick. None of it is linear. But all of it is possible. And it starts with understanding that healing is not something that happens to you while you wait. It is something you actively participate in. Letting go does not mean forgetting. It does not mean pretending it did not hurt. It does not mean you have to stop caring about someone overnight. It means gradually loosening the grip that the experience has on your present life so that it becomes part of your story without being the whole of it. The first step is allowing yourself to grieve fully and without judgment. Not just the person but everything the relationship represented, the future you imagined, the version of yourself you were in it, the hope you invested. All of it deserves to be mourned. The second step is consciously interrupting the idealization. When your mind serves you the highlight reel, deliberately bring in the full picture. Not to make yourself angry, but to remember the complete truth. The third step is redirecting the mental energy that has been going toward this person back toward yourself. Your interests, your goals, your friendships, your healing. Every time your mind reaches toward them, gently redirect it toward something that builds your own life. And the fourth step, perhaps the most important, is radical self-compassion. You did not stay because you were stupid. You did not struggle to leave because you were weak. You stayed because you were human, because you were bonded, because your brain was doing exactly what brains do. Forgiving yourself for that is not optional. It is the foundation of everything else. Your brain is not broken. It is not betraying you. It is doing exactly what millions of years of evolution designed it to do, holding on to what it bonded with, searching for closure, protecting you from the pain of loss. But you are not just your brain. You are the person who gets to decide what you do next. And healing, real, lasting healing, is available to you. Not on the other side of forgetting them. Not on the other side of understanding why they did what they did. But on the other side of choosing yourself, consistently, even when every part of you wants to reach back. If this video helped you understand yourself even a little more clearly, subscribe right now. Every single week we go this deep into the psychology behind why you think, feel, and behave the way you do. Nobody explains it like this anywhere else. Now I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me, how long did it take you to finally start letting go, and what actually helped? I read every single comment and your answer might help someone else feel less alone. And if you want to go even deeper, next week we are covering something even darker. The psychological reason why some people are completely incapable of feeling guilt. And the signs that someone in your life might be one of them. That video is coming next and you do not want to miss it. See you there.